Good morning, everyone. This is Mark Chibahusky for the fourth episode of Align Health Insights with Stedman Hood, founder of Neon Health. Good morning, Stedman. How you doing?
Morning. Thanks, Mark. I'm great. It's good to be here.
I really appreciate you taking the time. Look, just briefly tell the audience about yourself, and then we're going to get into a series of questions.
Sure thing. So my name's Stedman Hood. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Neon Health. We are solving the problem of prescription abandonment and improving patient access for specialty medication. So there's a lot of reasons why patients aren't able to successfully onboard and adhere to their specialty drugs that are critical to their care. And we are jumping over those hurdles for them to help them get more of those drugs that they need.
Fantastic. What inspired you and your team at Neon Health to focus on AI-powered patient access, and how does this mission reflect your personal journey in tech?
So when my co-founder and I were thinking about what company to start and where we wanted to be dedicating ourselves for the next 10 years, we honestly, we red pilled ourselves in healthcare. There was this moment where we realized at some point, each one of us is going to be at the mercy of the healthcare system, right? We're going to be lying on that hospital bed, just doctors are going to be buzzing around, nurses, and like God willing, we all have this moment, right? We live long enough to, and in that moment, Mark, you're going to wonder, did I do everything that I could do? Could I have spent more time, dedicated more of my efforts to solving the kind of the problems that this patient on this hospital bed is currently facing? And truly, every one of us, I think, is going to have that moment. And it might not be you on the hospital bed. You might be watching, God forbid, your parents, your spouse, your kids, whatever it is. All of us are just so, we're just so mortal, right? And we're all going to be at the mercy of the system. And the system is, unless you work in it, even if you work in it, it is, very hard to conceive of what's going on all the time. And it can be very frustrating. Like as you get older, you also start to see, friends get diagnoses out of left field, and it totally changes their life. And you realize, wow, that could happen to anyone I love. It could happen to me. Same thing with your parents as they age. And so, yeah, broadly, it just became really clear that if we worked on anything else, we would live to regret it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, look, Neon Health, it's amazing. You guys went from an idea to seven-figure contracts in about 4 months. What strategies or innovations drove that rapid growth in an industry known for, quite frankly, really long sales cycles?
Yeah, so you need to find one of our investors calls it the white hot center of customer demand. Like where,
I like that.
sure, you could sell to a bunch of different people and maybe they all look similar on paper, but there's somebody who's going to be a true believer. They're already picking up what you're putting down, right? They already have the vision that they want to bring to reality the kind of the thing that you're saying that you can do for them. And you got to find those people, right? It's not worth fighting uphill battles with kind of tech laggards. It's much more important to find the early adopters, the vanguard, right? So working backwards from that, how do you find them? Well, you got to put yourself in a position where the vanguard are going to find you, or where you can easily have a lot of conversations and kind of separate them out from everybody else.
Yeah.
That's what we did. We went to, a ton of industry conferences. We started just writing about what we were learning and about where we saw opportunity. And through a few iterations of that, we honed in on this problem of prescription abandonment for specialty drugs and just built a ton of conviction that this was the place that we wanted to be spending our neurons, our time.
Yeah.
And long story short, we found an incredible early design partner, and they were willing to co-create this vision together for the first product that we built.
Amazing. So as we move into Q3 2025, how do you see the healthcare industry's recent momentum driven by AI in healthcare impacting patient care overall?
There's a couple of trends from more near term and more long term. So as I think in the near term, people have started to understand what is possible with AI in a way that they needed to be convinced of or just could never believe, even a few years ago. I was talking to the CEO of a pretty large medical coding company. They do automated medical coding. And before ChatGPT came out, he was spending all of his time convincing potential customers that his tech worked. And because people said, oh, you can't automate medical coding. And, they'd been in the industry for years and they'd seen armies of people thrown at this problem for, forever. And so reasonably they thought it can't be done. But when ChatGPT came out, suddenly that opened up their eyes to the baseline capabilities of AI systems. And suddenly he didn't have to convince them that it was possible. He just had to convince them that he was the best option to go with, right? And so that's a trend that I think is continuing to play out,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
people are just really are coming to terms, frankly, with the incredible capabilities that these AI systems have, and now not thinking about, is it real or not, but rather where is the highest ROI place to be plugging in these kinds of systems.
Yeah, that for sure. I mean, the adoption curve is really educational, and healthcare does move at the speed of trust. So, those things are definitely playing in the favor as we matriculate forward in this journey of people quickly adopting at this point. So inflation, is spiking, right? How might this economic stability influence healthcare's innovation and investment decisions?
Well, Mark, I'm not sure if we talked about this. I worked at the Fed. It was my first job out of college.
I
And
don't know. I didn't know. I know you by now. I didn't know that. That's awesome. That's pretty
um,
sweet.
let's see. So, okay, putting on my macroeconomist hat, when
Yeah.
inflation goes up, investment also goes up because the value of
Interesting.
your dollar tomorrow is less than the value today. So you might as well invest that dollar in real assets or R&D that's going to yield higher production. So in principle, a little bit higher investment is actually good for innovation. And indeed,
Yeah.
that's why macroeconomists, policymakers want non-zero inflation. They want like a 2% target. I think the very pernicious thing about inflation is when it can run away or when expectations become unhinged. And generally, I think that the counter argument of this is businesses need stability in order to make long-term investment decisions. And so
Yeah.
these are two countervailing factors. Um, this is kind of a boring answer, Mark. I'll kind of walk around the earth just to tell you something boring, but
I love the data, to be honest with you. So not to
yeah,
me.
yeah.
So
I would say we have been below target. We were below target inflation, which is 2% for like a decade and a half. And then after COVID, we had above target for a couple of years. But I think we're fine. Like I think that it all kind of nets out to capitalism is still chugging along, and I
yep.
don't expect. I don't expect big macroeconomic factors to impact investment decisions, particularly of. I suppose with pharma in particular, there's problems where reimbursement rates are going down. Let's say we've got reimbursement rates going down, we've got higher interest rates. These kind of drive investments out of the money, so to speak, on the margin. So these are bad more on the development side, right? And that will propagate through to commercialization problems as well. But those are my macroeconomic thoughts. Happy to go into more detail if you think it'd be interesting.
I've got so many more questions. I think that I will take you up on that at some point, though.
Okay.
Look, I'm just reading the website here. It says that Neon aims to be a $200 billion company, or I've read that somewhere. What milestones are critical to reaching that scale? And how will patient outcomes drive that growth?
Yeah. So there are a couple of there's a spectrum in the way you think about building a business. You can build something that's a pure product, like Teams, Microsoft
Yeah,
Teams, Microsoft Office,
sure.
Slack, or you can build something that's a pure consultative solution like Deloitte or McKinsey, right?
Yeah.
And we are in the middle. And when we talk about the $200 billion company that we want to build, really that's a proxy for we want to build a company that's at the kind of nexus between these things, where it gets the best of both worlds. You get best in class, scalable architecture and solutions that you can trust because they weren't built one off, right? But the platform capabilities are used across companies. But then at the other end, you get direct connectivity, kind of pure, totally custom to your company, your organization, your workflows, and you can bridge that gap. That's where the magic happens, right? So
Yeah.
we see other companies that we want to model ourselves after, like Palantir, like ServiceNow, that effectively bridge this gap
Yeah.
between best-in-class scalable software architecture with kind of last mile delivery that is totally custom. And it's so good for the customer. It's so good for us because we have this opportunity to solve on the margin to solve their problems. Whenever they have a new problem, instead of thinking, oh, let's go shop for a solution to that problem, they think, I wonder if Neon can help us with that. And they go talk
Right.
to us and we say, let's see, we're going to do our best. Yeah. So that is how we want to execute on that vision.
Very cool. As Neon hires for critical roles like software engineers and business operations, how do you identify candidates who thrive in a startup's fast-paced, AI-driven culture?
There's the lazy answer, which is have they done it before? And I think
Yeah.
you should be looking for that. But startups also have to find the alpha, so to speak. They have to find the um, they have to find the folks in the labor market that maybe are being overlooked by other companies. And one way to do that is to generate your own alpha, right? And you do that by testing the jobs to be done. So I'm a big fan philosophically of assessments that are unbiased, they're objective, they don't care about where you went to school, what you look like on paper, they care about can you do the jobs to be done on a daily basis, right? So for sales hires, that means we go through a mock demo and see, how do they
Yeah.
actually run the demo? Because that
Yeah.
is arguably one of the most important things that they do in their job. With engineers, we actually like write some code together. With BizOps, I mean, BizOps is a whole long tail
Yeah.
of things to be done. And indeed, it's almost a meta skill. Like with the BizOps hires that we're making, it's critical that they can wear many hats, that they can figure out what is the job to be done, and
Yeah.
then do that well enough to hire for it, kind of spin up that function and move on. And so the interview process there seeks to have them do something that almost surely they've never done before, right? Because that's what we want to figure out is how do they learn something new.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. So, just going back to the budget questions really quickly, for healthcare leaders facing Q3 budget constraints, what AI investment strategies would you recommend based on Neon Health's experience?
Budget constraints. I would say people disagree on this. I was just at a conference last month where this pharma leader said, "Don't dip your toe with AI. Just jump in the deep end." And I love that hot take, but I disagree with it. I think that you should be trying to do the crawl, walk, run motion as much as you can for budget reasons, for minimizing your downside reasons, and for testing out your vendors, right? Like I said, a lot of folks are selling vaporware. It's never been easier to make a demo that looks really shiny but doesn't actually work in production. And
Yeah.
so I think it's important to do this crawl walk run situation. So I'll give you an example. The way that we started with actually with our first customer was we didn't do a full end-to-end workflow automation. We looked at the whole workflow and we said, we're going to automate this chunk. This is the lowest hanging fruit. We're going to do that for you. We're going to prove that we're valuable. And then here's what the next 6, 9, 12 months are going to look like of kind of fleshing out the rest of the automation.
Very good. All right, we'll get back to that stuff in a second. It just kind of dawned on me that I was very curious about that. So, what feedback have you received from healthcare enterprises using your AI, and how has it shaped your product development?
Let's see. The biggest surprise is that we went into these organizations saying we are going to automate some of these phone calls, right? And the biggest surprise was how much around the phone call needed to be automated as well. There's workflows before the phone call. There's workflows after the phone. There's
Sure. Yeah.
workflows during the phone. And so basically doing that end to end was frankly a surprise. Like we thought we'd be more plug and play
Yeah.
than it turned out that we could be, right? And indeed, it wouldn't have been possible to deliver that part of the solution without building those components, the scaffolding around it, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. It makes a lot of sense to me. Having built PlateJoy, Dispatch, and having sold Retriever, what's the most unexpected challenge you faced transitioning to healthcare with Neon Health?
I think that the motion of so the customer profile is very, very different. Obviously, different industry, but also different scale of company. I've never sold to massive enterprises, 7, 8 figure deals before, and it is very fun and very different. The thing that's so fun is that the level of just the level of attention that you can give to each customer is incredible. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I truly feel like I'm part of all these different teams. And it's a really rewarding thing because we get to share our wins together.
Yeah.
When you're slinging $20 a month per seat SaaS, you just can't get that involved with your customers, right? So helping them out with strategy far beyond what we're delivering to them, but just that's going to help their business in general. That's something that I can afford to do, and it's a joy to do it. Being able to like fly out and go skiing with with one of the people that we're working with, because he's a great skier, and it's like this is awesome. This is so much fun. And again, you can't do that with a consumer company. You can't do that when you're selling to 0 to 1 startups. You can't do that when
Yeah.
you're selling $20 a month SaaS. So that's the biggest difference.
That's awesome. I mean, you really get to get these like deep partnerships and deep relationships. And I guess you're finding that super rewarding, right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. What role does patient onboarding play in improving healthcare outcomes, and how does your AI streamline this process?
Oh my gosh, Mark, I don't think of myself as much of a visionary, but I do have this vision of the future of healthcare, which
Yeah.
is fully personalized. Like everything you're guided through. It's like imagine the concierge in your pocket who's just saying, "Okay, Mark, here's where we're at, here's where we're going, here's the map, and I'm walking you through. I'm doing everything for you, but I just want to give you the FYI of here's where we're at,
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
where we're tomorrow, next week." And I think that kind of uh, just in time communication to the patient is exactly what the patient needs because most of us are not providers. We didn't go to med school. We don't know like the latest and greatest research. And so we can't conceive of kind of all of the relevant factors in getting care. We don't
Yeah.
know the most likely pitfalls to failing to adhere to some treatment or whether an adverse reaction is really something to watch out for or not. And so I think that if you can have this 100% personalized, AI in your pocket, that can solve a whole slew of problems from not just onboarding, but also adherence, and generally make the patient more empowered to
Yep.
across all domains. And so I'm incredibly excited about that future. And I think that right now we've started to branch into our first patient-facing workflows, and we're already seeing just tremendous results. I'll give you an example it's not from us, but it's a peer-reviewed study that showed that just simply following up with a patient after they were just discharged from the ER,
Yep.
that reduced readmissions by 50%. Right, and
Wow.
it's not like a clinician saying, hey,
Yeah.
reading their charts. It's just it was a fascinating study because they took nurses and made the calls, they took volunteers and made the calls, and then the third group didn't get the calls. And the
Hmm.
volunteers and the nurses, these volunteers were not clinicians, right? They were just like, I don't know, some like retired person who was coming to the hospital,
Yep.
and they were just as effective as the nurses, right? So I
Wow.
think that in AI can be just as effective as them, and
Yep.
uh, and if you reduce readmission 50%, that's amazing for patients. Obviously, it's
Oh yeah.
amazing for the insurance companies that are covering them. It's amazing for the healthcare systems that are so kind of stretched thin, especially in the ER. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. Hey, the FDA's expected July 2025 AI guidelines are on the horizon. How could these regulations shape the future of AI in healthcare?
Well, I think that markets are really made by regulation, particularly in this
For
industry.
sure.
And so what we we want to do the Goldilocks thing of not hamstringing innovation, but also not opening it up to a wild west where bad actors can run amok. So, like, I'm not a policymaker. My hope is that they don't do things like constrain. I don't know if you remember the Congress had this bill that failed, but it was saying we got to regulate anything above a certain number of flops or floating point
Yep.
operations per second. And I don't think that made any sense because you could imagine a system that's kind of way smarter than they were trying to regulate, but below that number of flops just because of the I don't know the architecture. Um, I think that's my non-answer for you is just we need to do the Goldilocks thing of not over-regulating and not under-regulating.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what hiring priorities should healthcare organizations set this year to address the need for AI and telehealth expertise?
I think you need operators who, let me think for a minute. So you need to know what expertise do you want to bring in-house and what expertise is it strategic to outsource, right? So it's going to be very, very hard for you to bring in-house the kinds of AI engineers who are currently getting, I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
the $100 million offers to go to
Yeah,
Meta.
from Zuckerberg, it's like trying to buy up all the, OpenAI and Anthropic engineers. Yeah.
That's right. It's going to be tough. So, given that you probably can't compete in that, what's complementary to that, where you can kind of hire that from vendors and then have your team working effectively with them. And I think it's just really good project management, right? It's like there's so many cats to herd to get one of
Yeah.
these projects live. There's so much data that you need to get over. And so what we found is our best advocates within our partner organizations are just these phenomenal project managers, right? They're
Yeah.
like taskmasters. They make sure that they're herding the cats on their side so that we don't have
Yep.
to. Because as a vendor, it's a little bit tenuous sometimes. Like you can't push too hard to get what you need. So you need somebody on the inside to do that. So I would say, investing in those kinds of folks, they tend to look kind of like junior management consultants. They have high attention to detail, analytical rigor. They're not afraid to like get their hands dirty and actually do some of
Yep.
the IC work necessary, but they also can communicate effectively across different parts of the organization.
Yeah. I think this is like a relatable question to the question I just asked, but how can organizations train their teams to adopt these AI tools?
Hmm. I'll tell you how we do it. I mean, and then we can see
Yeah,
about where the
sure.
analogy. We just set the expectation. If you're not using these tools to do your job, you're doing it wrong. In the same way, like you got to use a laptop. You got to use the internet. Well, Gen AI is the new. It's a new platform, and if you're not using it, not only are you going to be left behind in the labor market, but you are not building the intuition for how these systems operate that is going to help you deliver more value through Neon,
Yeah.
right? Like if our engineers are not using Cursor and Claude Code, then they're not going to have a lot of empathy for why our systems are doing this or that or the other.
For the record, you and I just recently worked together, and I left that engagement with my own set of AI tools you gave me. So I really appreciate that. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Look, we all know this, right? This is a big thing. Accuracy issues in AI remain a concern, right? That's why everyone's not really purely agentic at this point, right? Especially in an industry that's highly regulated and lawsuits and deaths and et cetera. So you need to be 100% accurate with what you're doing. How do you think the industry can address this challenge as adoption grows?
Let's see. I think it's pretty critical. So when you're applying AI, you need to figure out where does the AI system start and stop? What are the limits that wherein we're going to allow it to do its thing and where we're going to say, let's have some human intervention. And so in order to answer that question, you need to do what's called process mining. Process mining really came to the forefront during the robotic process automation boom, I don't know, a decade ago. And it's the same thing. What you have to do is you have to look at the entire workflow that you're looking to automate. You have to articulate what are all the nodes in that workflow, edges between those nodes, basically what is the flow chart. And then you have to figure out which components of that is our AI system going to tackle and which is it not going to tackle. All right. And when it hits an exception in any one of those nodes in the workflow, you need to figure out what is the exception path. How do you get that exception to a human to review? Does that need to be real time? Can that be asynchronous, et cetera? And so you really just need to put in the work to do all that process mining. Once you've done that, then you can much more easily articulate to the AI how should it handle these exceptions. And that's what we found. And so to summarize, you got to do the process mining. You've got to figure out for every piece of the process that the AI is going to handle, what is the exception path, and then you need to test the heck out of that. So one of the most preeminent AI researchers, this guy Andrew Ng at Stanford,
Mhm.
his entire kind of thesis right now is evals, evals, evals. So what are evals? Evals are tests that you put into place. So if you're navigating a web portal, you need to make sure that you've got a bunch of examples of how it should look at every stage of that web portal navigation, and make sure that your AI is staying on the rails as it goes through and does that in production.
Cool. All right. So, how do you see AI powered patient access evolving over the next 5 years? And where does Neon aim to lead in that space?
So there's a game of catch up that needs to happen where the
Yeah.
capabilities that we have are far outpacing the what is implemented. So I would love to see, honestly, in the next 5 years, just I would love to see the industry catch up to 2025 level capabilities. That
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
by 2030, the capabilities are going to be, I don't know if it's going to be super linear or exponential, or if it's going to be logarithmic, but it's going to be somewhat higher than they are today. And look, my hope is just that we try to keep up as best we can, because I think that the daylight between the capabilities and what we've implemented at the industry, there's human suffering, there's death, there's morbidity between
Yeah.
that, right? So I really think that we have a moral obligation to close that gap. And what is my dream for this is what I mentioned before, of that kind of 100% personalized in your pocket concierge care coordinator. Right? I really think that we don't have an excuse why that shouldn't be the future of medicine. And it's a question of who's gonna pay for that. Is that the insurance company? Is that the health system? Is that the pharma company? But at the end of the day, we do have that. Even today, I would argue we have 80% of that capability. It's a question of getting into patients' hands.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, and when we talk about healthcare, I've been in it for 22 years. And when you see the problems that you learn intuitively, you have to look no further than your own family. And we all have families, right?
Absolutely.
So this is awesome, and you're doing great work. What advice would you give startups looking to integrate AI into healthcare based on your journey from concept to profitability?
Do you mean net new startups, like 0 to 1 startups, or startups that already have a product and they want to kind of sprinkle AI on?
I think you can give an answer to both. It's interesting. I think if you're a startup right now and you're not using AI in any way, shape, or form, that'd be kind of,
Mhm.
I guess you'd not be a health tech company. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? Unless you're
yeah.
purely services, and that's a whole different. Why don't we just say, you have experience using AI, right? And now you've sold a few companies, and now a
Mhm.
younger founder is looking to you that's developing a technology company, asking you about AI best practices. How are you going to
Mhm.
help this young founder?
I would say build human in the loop. So when they're thinking about what kind of product they want to be
Yeah.
providing, presumably with some AI automation, I would say you need to build in a human in the loop workflow and make that first class. Like, yes, these systems are incredible, but there's always going to be a long tail of exceptions, edge cases that your system either has not seen before, or just from a business logic perspective, they're so critical that you want to make sure that there's a human review. So for example, for us, that's adverse event detection. If we,
Yep.
if we detect anything like an adverse event, we want to shoot that over to a human, because we do not want to play, games with that. And
No, no, no.
so make sure that you have human in the loop feedback there. I would say, if possible, kind of hitch your wagon to a design partner that you're super aligned with on the vision that you want to co-create, and
Yep.
co-create that with them. I think that allows you, that's if you're selling to enterprise. If you're going down market to smaller mom and pop shops, I would say you need to make sure that your solution. Okay, so broadly, I think there's two ways to build a big business. Here, you can go either very, what I would call horizontal, where you are providing almost an infrastructure level capability, right? Like
Yep.
Twilio for voice over IP, or Stripe for payments. Like these are operating across all these different verticals, right? So you see companies like Bland, which are doing voice AI across a bunch of different industries. It's kind of plug and play. And then you see companies like ours, which are doing voice AI is one slice of it, but we've got all these other layers, and we're automating the full end-to-end workflow. And I would say don't go in the middle. I would say either do full kind of very deep full vertical integration, or very horizontal. I think the middle is where you get into trouble.
Okay. Very good advice. Very good advice. So for our audience, what healthcare trends should they really be staying on top of to stay competitive in this evolving landscape from your perspective?
Let's see. I think the regulation is critical. We recently, for example, realized that we could do a lot more patient out. There were some FTC regulations that seem to keep pharmas from reaching out to patients
Yeah.
before they're onboarded. And indeed, we just realized that those do not really apply. And so there's a lot more patient engagement that you can do
Yep.
to guide folks over all the hurdles to care. So you got to be smart on the regulations and what's possible, what's not. Um, so regulations are one thing. Let's see what else. What else do you need to be abreast of? I think it's important to. I think it's important to almost just think about this stuff in the shower. Like just really really be thinking about. Um, like there's some magic to just always be new, when you set your brain to always have a background process thinking about something. Magic happens. Like this. I think
Yeah.
certain physics breakthroughs happened. Um, and I think that patient access leaders need to be doing the same thing. They need to always be noodling on, okay, what is possible, kind of curious, right? And
Yeah.
that curiosity will open up more doors than any one piece of advice I could give.
Very good. Love that. All right. So we're going to hit our last 4 rapid fire questions. All right. So if you could code a solution for one healthcare challenge tomorrow, would it be patient access, policy navigation, or something else, and why?
But code, you mean like build an AI, build a software?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, the thing I'm most excited about right now is the patient-facing stuff, and
Yeah.
so I would build I would build a. We are building this, so maybe this is kind of a cheap answer, but I would start to build that AI concierge that is
Well,
in patients' pocket, guiding them through the entire patient access journey from prescribed, from diagnosed to prescribed to onboarded and adhered.
yep. Yeah. Well, definitely the right answer. I'm glad that you're still passionate about what what's one place you've always wanted to travel, and why?
Oh, I want to go skiing in Japan. I have no excuse for not having done it
Oh,
yet, but it
yeah.
is incredible. I love skiing. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, on the All In podcast, I think I hear Jay Cal always, dialing in from Japan. But yeah, it looks beautiful. So, what leader do you most admire in healthcare, and why?
What leader do I most admire in healthcare and why? I think VPs, I think population health leaders, they have uh, they have my heart. I don't know. They
Yeah.
often these people they started as providers, clinicians, and
Yep.
then they got to the point where they realized that they could have more impact, kind of delivering on the same promise, right? Helping patients, but at a scale where I almost feel like, by and large, I've met a lot of these folks, and I feel like they've almost made this sacrifice where they've
Yeah.
said, I'm going to step outside my comfort zone, the place where I'm my zone of genius, and really what I love doing, which is being that kind of one-to-one relationship with the patient, and I'm going to do the thing that I know is higher impact.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just think these people they're this incredible blend of, like, yeah, they come from a provider background, but now they're thinking about the numbers. They really speak in statistics, which I appreciate. And I think the other thing I love about population health is it's so proactive relatively, right? So it's got more of that functional health bent where you're thinking about how do we keep the patient out of the hospital in the first place instead of optimizing care once they're in the
Yep.
hospital. I don't know if value-based care and everything is the be-all end-all. I think there's a lot of lower-hanging fruit, like just fixing our diet, in America and
Yeah.
in modernity writ large. But population health is they're my people.
Yeah, I think the biggest correlative to a healthy population actually is monthly household income, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So, if you could solve one healthcare challenge with AI today, accuracy, regulation, or talent, which one would it be? Is it? I guess what if you could solve one healthcare challenge with AI today, accuracy, regulation, or talent, what would it be and why?
You mean at our company or in the industry?
Interest in the industry.
I think I would want to improve the way that procurement happens, because I
Yeah,
mentioned
I think it's a great idea.
all of AI, all of health, remember? Like
Yeah.
they totally scorched the earth. Like they sold way ahead of their skis, and all these health institutions bought it hook, line, and sinker, and then they got screwed. And it's
Yeah.
really bad because it sets those healthcare leaders on the back foot where now they're scared to make new investments, and it makes it harder for new innovators to come to market because they're walking on all this scorched earth. So I think that if we could educate these enterprises about how to evaluate, how to go through procurement, and how to implement these solutions, I think that's the highest order bit.
I think that's a great idea. Well, look, I'm out of questions, but I am so thankful. My audience, be on the lookout for Stedman and Neon Health. By the way, really quickly, where can folks find you if they want more information, Stedman?
Sure. Yeah, my email is stedman@neonhealth.com. It's STEDMAN at neonhealth.com. And you can find me on Twitter at Stedman Blake.
And the published ROI coming from your customers is bananas, man. You guys are really crushing it. I'm excited to keep watching, and I'm cheering you guys on from home.
Thank you,
Thanks so
sir.
much, everyone. This has been Align Health Insights, episode 4 with Neon Health. Thank you so much all for joining. Have a great day. Bye. All right, man.